Alright guys, TacticalRab here again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome to Championship Sunday at Major 5 in Toronto. 4 teams only remain. Atlanta FaZe will go in as the favourites. The Toronto home crowd will still have a home team to support, but OpTic's went out way back on Friday. New coach, it seems. Karma gives his thoughts, why this happens, what went wrong for the team this weekend, and the fact that he really isn't responsible for this collapse they had on the first couple of matches they played. Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Before we begin, thanks to Underdog Fantasy for supporting today's content. If you're looking to get involved in the fastest growing daily fantasy sports platform on the web, this is the place to be. They've got higher lowers for all the different sports and esports as expected. Here's one for Hicksy, here's one for the Valorant games coming up today. But the favourite thing about this from my perspective is the rivalries they've introduced. So you can choose who's going to get more kills in a series. Is it going to be aBeZy or is it going to be Cellium? Now the players have an adjustment here, so Cellium is expected to get 5 less than aBeZy. So if Cellium gets more than 5 less, then he wins between the two of them. Here's another couple as well between Cellium and Slasher, so if Slasher gets more than 4 less kills than Cellium, then he's going to win between the two. If you're looking to get involved and you're in one of these eligible territories, feel free to use the code RAB or use the link in the description box below, and they'll match any deposit you make up to the value of $100. Play responsibly as always, and let's get on with the video. Firstly though, we've got to dive into the Toronto versus Thieves series from last night. A really interesting one. Doug, by the way, they made it to top 6. They play, of course, again today. They lost, I believe, to the Bobs guys, the French team that is really good and possibly the favourites for the Challengers tournament right now. So I think they got 3-0'd by that team last night to, well, secure themselves top 6 at the very least. But of course, they'll want to go one better than that. They might well have Challengers Champs qualification secured anyway, Doug, especially if Kremp was to return to their team, because there are rumours going around right now that Boston could make a change and maybe they'll bring Nero back in from Challengers. So that's a question that's been going around, and if that does happen, they'll have, I think, more pro points, that Boston Academy team. So anyway, they'll want to go one better than top 6 regardless. Yesterday though, Toronto versus Thieves, really interesting series, right? I mean, Thieves had that crazy losers bracket run so far. When they played OpTic, I wasn't especially impressed by Thieves. I just thought OpTic played pretty terribly. Thieves played well, for sure, no doubt about it, but I don't think they did anything spectacular in the OpTic series. They just overcome a worse opposition on the day. Then they played London, okay, 3-0, but outside of the control, it wasn't particularly convincing. So now they play a decent Ultra team with a home crowd buff behind them, and they didn't get blown out. I mean, obviously we know what Scrappy said in the post-game interview, but it wasn't particularly competitive, to be fair. The crowd was absolutely buzzing here, of course. The squirrel mascot was having a good time as usual, and as I said last night, you don't always get to feel the energy of the crowd on the stream, but this is probably the best crowd I've heard in some time, at least of the events I've been to this year. And sometimes the gain on the crowd audio on the stream isn't quite the same as what it feels like in real life. And there was some good chants going on here, right? The 0-7 they had going on in the Search and Destroy. It did still go round 11 though, and there was even an FU Drazah chart going around. Now, we know how Drazah goes. All of these receipts from the crowd, from Scrappy after the series, he will be writing them down and taking some notes, right, to when it comes to playing these guys again come champs, or maybe even in 5 years time, Drazah's going to be ready to say what he wants to say on stage after the fact. So we'll see if Thieves can get their revenge, because I'm sure that's what they're going to be going for. The Search and Destroy in the end though goes 6-5 in their favour, and this control was absolutely absurd. Bryce almost lost his mind watching this, and I can't blame him, because it was a 3-1 in the control, but this final round was just so ridiculous, right? To Thieves, it looked like they were going to get this offensive victory, actually. They got 2 dead here, only 4 lives remaining on Toronto. CleanX can't really get one, but all his team clutches up here. He gets one, Envoy goes down as well, he flies out, he gets traded, but then all the kills go in their favour, and it was actually insane because only Drazah was left at this point, a 3 versus 1 with 8 seconds on the clock. Drazah gets 1 kill, Hicksy then kind of pre-fires thinking that there's not enough time left for Drazah to get to the point, but there is, and Insight kills him with about half a second to go, and there was a chance there that Drazah kills Insight and it goes round 5. That would have been ridiculous. And the reaction here, of course, from the Toronto guys was fantastic as well. You know how it goes with these boys. So, it was good to see them make Championship Sunday at least, because difficult defeat to Atlanta FaZe. It's a weird one with these top teams, right? Because Thieves always seem to get OpTic's number. Toronto always seem to have the number of Thieves. FaZe always get beaten by OpTic, but they also always beat Toronto. So it's kind of like a cycle of teams that have, of the top 4 teams, theoretically, then have a benefit over each other. So yeah, Scrappy was loving it. He finally had a really good series here, because so far in the weekend he hadn't really done that much. Hicksy, such an interesting player, Hicksy, because he can be super quick quiet for like 10 minutes and then get like a crucial 2-piece that's going to win your team the game. So he's a very valuable player for the team, of course. I think he makes the rest of their guys better. But Thieves 3-0'd, that will be frustrating for them, because if they went out here game 5 round 11, they'd have been frustrated, but they would have known, you know what, we 3-0'd OpTic, we 3-0'd London, we can feel confident going into champs. But to be honest, right, Envoy had a pretty rough series, 3-0'd by Toronto. That doesn't give them maximum confidence going into champs. They can take something away from the tournament, right, and top 6 is, you know, the minimum they would have expected after starting in losers, but it is nonetheless something that can happen. And looking at the bracket at the start of the tournament, it was always going to be one of FaZe, Toronto, or Thieves would be out in the very, you know, top 6 minimum, right? And it's Thieves on this occasion that is the team to bow out of the tournament. Even as Octane says, wasn't meant to be. The losers run doesn't come true. Eyes forward to champs, as many teams have to look forward to champs right now, because that is all they've got left in the season. So as Nadeshot says, the Beijing burglars have been eliminated from Major 5. I saw other people talking about, you know, the Shanghai shoplifters or whatever, right? Some sort of like, you know, Chinese 100 Thieves hybrid here. So Nadeshot's obviously joking around, but nonetheless, his team hasn't been performing great lately. A pretty disappointing stage from them. Top 6 in the ends, and they, you know, 1 in 4 online qualifier split. That's not going to be enough to move them up the rankings, of course. They're almost certainly now going to play the New York Subliners round 1 at the World Championship. Far from an easy game on current evidence, but it's not the hardest game they could possibly have had. As Kenny's like, look, compound's going to look real empty when I come to get my trophies and take them away. Unable subbing in for champs, apparently. And, I mean, look, we had the Dashy challenge coming through for Envoy and Co this time. Even Octane here had a few words for Scrappy after that match concluded, because, I mean, look, he did the post-game interview. You know how it works with Scrappy right in front of the home crowd, you know, saying they got pissed on and all this stuff. So great entertainment, and they will go on to play the New York Subliners tomorrow. And it was an interesting stat that Aix mentioned on the flank, right, that they have not beaten New York Subliners, a team that's not at champs outside of Minnesota Rokkr, on LAN this year. New York have generally got easier runs in the brackets they've been in, but in fairness, they probably should have beaten Toronto day 1, but they didn't, because they choked the hell out of that control. So, you know, I think Subliners can definitely put up a fight and be an impactful force here on the championship Sunday, but, you know, the momentum feels like it should be the way of Toronto when they play that series today. Scrappy with the 1.2. Envoy had a really tough one by his standards, but yeah, they will move on and look forward to the World Championship. And just speaking of champs, Nero and Boston, he tweeted this out last night. Now, I don't know what this means, of course, but I will say that there's been some rumours circulating that Nero back into the starting team from Boston is a likely possibility. It wouldn't be a massive surprise if it was. They think, you know what, we'll run it back to the team we got top 4 with, right, the Beans Awakening, Nero, Vivid roster. Kremp has started off well, but over the last couple of weeks hasn't really worked out for him. That might happen. The implications of that would be quite interesting, but regardless of that, we believe OpTic will probably play Boston round 1. This is not guaranteed. If Toronto were to reach the grand final, which is definitely possible, then Ultra would be moving ahead of OpTic in the overall season standings, which would put Ultra the 2nd seed, and then the 7th seed they would play, which is currently Boston, and therefore OpTic would play Rokkr. But if Rokkr make a big run, they can maybe make some inroads as well, even though that might be more of a challenge. So things still are not set as it stands in terms of who's going to play who at champs. Most of the matches are probably secured, as in FaZe I think should play Surge, which is also pretty interesting because that can be a bit of a bogey game for them. OpTic should play Boston, which is definitely favourable, and right now I'd prefer to play Boston than I would to play Minnesota Rokkr, which is where Toronto could try and upset things today. Speaking of OpTic though, of course, terrible tournament by their standards. It's really not clear what went wrong for this team, and even Karma and JP don't seem to quite understand why the team turned up and just weren't themselves this weekend. Whether they came in feeling super confident it was going to be a walk in the park, and then that map 1 against Florida really threw them off their game, who really knows? But they weren't quite the same. There was some debate as to whether their scrims in practice behind the scenes at this event, some have said they weren't particularly good, some have said they were still particularly good, so who really knows, right? But of course Karma came out with the guys on the match on the first day, seemingly their new head coach of the team, right? I mean, he's not going to be involved maybe as heavily as some other coaches would be, but nonetheless should be a valuable asset to the roster. So Karma gives his explanation and says, look, the guys for whatever reason just weren't themselves this weekend, they weren't really feeling it, they weren't playing their normal game, and Karma says, look, you can hate me if you want, you can direct the criticism my way, even though that's unjustified in Karma's perspective, because he's like, look, I've just been here for a few days, I've watched like 3 sets of scrims. It's not like Karma's taken this team from a championship winner to in the gutter all of a sudden, but these were his perspectives anyway.
Bro, do I just clear it up now? Like, I have not done anything with the team. I gotta clear that up. Like I said, y'all can say whatever, it doesn't bother me. If it takes hate off the players, yo, so be it. Send it all my way, fire away.
Absolutely. See, I like that. Yeah.
But like, I've watched, what, 3 scrims so far? Just watched. And just, you know, we just, like, never landed this weekend, right?
Yeah.
We're still just cruising around.
Yeah, I saw some
waiting
jokes.
Waiting for takedown.
I was seeing some jokes last night. But Rokkr, they look good. Florida. I mean, I know that all the Optic fans are now like, we lost to that. That's what they're saying right now. That's what they keep saying. That's what we lost to. That's how it happens, man. Call of Duty. Sometimes you come out just flat. It's how it works.
Yeah, I mean,
Minnesota looked great though.
I don't even know what to say. Like, it literally, they just weren't themselves, like, at all this weekend. Like, Florida, like, you could say Florida played great, Thieves played great. Yeah, they played great, but, like, I don't even know if it was, like, 50% of how well those guys could play. Like I said, I'm not going to give too much insight, but, like I said, I came into it, we got here, and what JP said was, like, this is just not normal.
It's weird.
Like, everything about, he's like, I don't even know what's going on. They just weren't themselves.
But it definitely is interesting, right? Because Karma did say a few weeks ago now on that kind of eavesdrop episode with Hicksy, was like, look, I don't want to come in and disrupt any of the team environment. I know some people have said, oh, you know, well, with the 3 rings behind you, you're going to be a bit more nervous. But, you know, I don't really think that would have affected them at all. So I honestly think that even if Karma didn't come in, they probably would have had a similar weekend. And you could say, look, maybe it's better that now is the wake-up call than never. Because going into OpTic's performance this weekend, it was unclear that OpTic could still play badly. Because ever since Major 3, they've been playing very well pretty much the entire time. So, you know, it's clear that they still have those bad performances in their locker, and understanding that means they can maybe overcome it come champs. Not the ideal time to be in a bit of a slump and have your confidence knocked going into the big one, but it's better they perform like that now than it is that they perform like that in a couple of weeks' time in Vegas, where they will have still a very achievable bracket based on their seeds. So tweet your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just to mention, for those of you who are at the venue today, they're doing a meet and greet, actually, the OpTic guys today on the East Concourse of the centre where the tournament is being held, with Scump and Methods between 12 and 1 Eastern, and then 1 and 2 Easterns with OpTic Texas as the matches just about get started and underway, as we shall now dive into. So these are the 8 teams officially at Champs. No Vegas, of course, unfortunately, as we saw yesterday. Surge are there. They already took a flight back, I believe, to Dallas, so they got out of it quick as a result of, you know, what happened to them. But FaZe, OpTic, Thieves, Ultra, Subliners, Boston, Rokkr, and Surge. Obviously, we could see some changes in the order right now. There was the talk before the tournament, maybe OpTic could get the #1 seed. That's no longer possible, but Ultra could still get higher than they presently are, which would be a pretty big deal for them going forwards. Just to mention with FaZe, because they do go in as the tournament favourites, these are the current overall KDs. They've only played 2 series, but nonetheless, Cell's got a 1.5, Slash has got a 1.5, and aBeZy and Simp are playing like the 2 best players in the game when they're on point again, which has been a long time since that's happened, but when it does happen, it is a scary sight indeed. A crazy bracket, right? Out of what, something like out of the last 14 series, there's been 10 3-0s, which is pretty rare, but it happened back at Major 2 as well. I don't know what's going on with all these 3-0s. I think it was like 6 3-0s in a row or something. I don't expect that to continue today. These are the matches then, starting with FaZe versus Minnesota Rokkr. Again, I would quite like it if it was the losers game first, but it is what it is. FaZe, you've got to come in as favourites, but I think this is going to be interesting. I'm going to say this is going to go to a game 5. If FaZe win any more convincingly than a game 5, I think they're going to win the tournament. But, you know, who knows? Rokkr, every single team on this list, apart from Rokkr, has won an event this year. There's not been 2-time event winners so far. There probably will be after today, but Rokkr are the only team here. Attached doesn't yet have his slice of the pie on the season. It's possible. Back at Major 2, it was the same winners finals. It went game 5, round 11. I'm pretty sure Rokkr are up 5-3. They choked it. It went 6-5 to FaZe. FaZe went on to win the tourney, and Rokkr got blown out by Thieves in the losers finals. I feel like this could be interesting. Rokkr have like not lost a hard point yet. They're looking really good in that mode, but I think FaZe in 5 is the reasonable prediction. Then Toronto, I've got to take them making the losers run here. I think, again, it should be a game 5. I don't know why there's been so many 3-0s, but surely this should be a game 5 just like it was before. I know that often when rematches happen, the team that lost the first time round has a bit of an edge, and maybe that is going to be the case here again, but I feel like Toronto should win, and I'll take them to make the finals as well, but I feel like maybe a more hometown team heartbreak could be coming. We've seen it already this season, the home team getting beaten in the finals, and, you know, if it is FaZe versus Ultra, again, as I said, I just think FaZe have their number a little bit, so that's my pretty safe prediction, but I think anything could really happen today. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.